The banking sector drove up the gains, up an average of 22% since Trump's election. The banks are preparing for the gains to continue in the new year as President-elect Donald Trump sets his economic plans in action. Joining us right now to talk about it is Citizens Financial Group CEO Bruce Van Saun. Bruce, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
You've been riding the wave. Your stock up about 11% in the last month.
Yep.
Do you think the moves that we're seeing within the financial services sector are warranted, given what you're expecting out of the regulatory environment come 17?
Well, I do think there's a number of things at play. The whole Trump and Republican stimulus program means lower corporate taxes probably is number one. You have interest rates, the yield curve is steepening, so there's good things that are getting priced into the market. It's still early days, but yeah, I think it's merited if you take the view that the good stuff will happen.
What about potential acquisitions and growth?
I think there's plenty of opportunities just to continue to focus on organic growth. So there's a lot of change in banking right now. The way consumers want to bank is moving to online. And so most banks are really just focused on how do we play the game differently as we go forward. And I think if you look at acquisitions, you might get distracted from that agenda in terms of making those changes.
Mm-hmm. How would you characterize lending right now? Talk to us about the environment that you see.
Yeah, we see good loan demand. So I think the commercial side, we've seen probably 7 or 8% loan demand for about 2 years. A lot of that has been refinancing into lower rates. What we would expect as rates go up, there'll be less refinancing. But if the economic growth picks up, hopefully there'll be more real loan demand that's going towards investing in the economy, working capital investment, or new plants and equipment.
Don, what about that? As the Fed begins to raise interest rates, does that limit what we might see, or?
No, I think that, that's indicative of that is that we have a growing economy. So that's a good news thing. I got a couple questions, though. The regional banking, what's happened is that banking has been consolidated so much, so small business owners are having it more difficult to get loans and access to capital and grow their businesses because of the highly regulated environment. And also the small, mid-sized regional banks have not been effective and been in trouble or closed down or bought. What do you see the future for those banks? And then also, is banking going to change from a bricks and mortar business to a predominantly online business?
Yeah, so I do think it's probably less that there's a limited supply of funds to lend than it really is the small business owners and the middle market companies that we serve have just been cautious in the economy. So they're managing their cash flow well, and they're not looking to expand. So what I think could spur more growth in the small business and middle market sector is if we see some of these pro-growth reforms enacted, then hopefully we'll see some animal spirits come back and people will be willing to invest. But certainly the banks have very strong capital positions and are willing to lend. With respect to bricks and mortars, I think that's still very important. What's happening effectively is branches are becoming advice centers, and so banks are moving more towards an advice model and less towards transactions. The transactions are done at the machines or over the smartphone, take a picture of your check. So we need less space for that. We need more space for advice.
How many advice centers can you have, though, right? I mean, does that mean ultimately you're going to close down some branches?
Well, actually, I think what we'll do is we'll have less space. So what we're going through at Citizens is a 10-year program to reformat our branches. We'll probably go from an average square footage size of 4,200 square feet to about half of that, 2,100 square feet. So less teller stations, right, and more private offices. We have 3 million customers, so I think we need roughly the same amount of branches. We just need less space.
How does your customer feel to you?
I think customers,
optimism,
it's interesting. It was a big surprise what the election result, but as the market has endorsed it, I think people are coming around and are now cautiously optimistic. So I think people are starting to feel that 2017 could set itself up to be a good year.
So you're talking about things moving more to advice. I've done a lot of work talking to millennials and younger folks about what they want out of advice, and it's a totally different thing than what we used to have. So how are you adapting the model on advice?
Sure. Well, we're trying to look at people through their life cycle And so have an offering for millennials. One of the things they have when they get out of college is they have some high-cost debt. And so how do we help them refinance that debt when they have a good job? Then the next thing they want to do is they want to start saving. What options are available to them? We just signed a joint venture with a fintech called SigFig to ultimately provide robo-advice. A lot of those millennials don't actually like to go in and talk to people.
Right.
They'd rather go online and supply their information. And so that's a perfect offering for the millennials.
We're about to get housing starts out. They're going to come out in about 2.5 minutes. A hit in the tape. Characterize housing for us real quick.
I think housing is still strong. I think the purchase market will stay strong into next year, although the refi market will come off with higher rates.
Bruce, good to see you.
Yeah, likewise.
Thanks so much. Bruce Van Saun joining us there from Citizens.